get your message or your brand or whatever it is you want to help people with, like start sharing it with everybody you know. Get it out there and see what people say. And the thing that I'm really focused on now, and I think is good advice, is the metric you should be trying to shoot for is more no's, as in NOs. Like get more no's, because the more no's you get from people, the more yeses you're going to get along the way. It's so easy to sit there and like craft your offer and craft your curriculum and your content and everything. But until you have somebody go like, no, that's not for me, you're not going to know which direction to go with it. So I think too often we're like, oh, I'm afraid to send this out because somebody might reject it. Like you should be looking for as many no's as you can possibly get in a day or a week, because that's ultimately going to get you to more yes.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets, the podcast where we talk with successful career coaches on how they built their success and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is Davis Nguyen, and I'm the founder of Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to 7 and 8 figures without burning out. Before Purple Circle, I started and scaled several 7 and 8 figure career coaching businesses myself and consulted with 2 career coaching businesses that are now doing over $100 million each. Whether you're an established coach or just building your practice for the first time, you'll discover the secrets to elevating your coaching business.
Hey everyone, welcome to another podcast episode of Career Coaching Secrets podcast. Today, my guest is Greg Roche, the founder of Retention and Rewards Partners and creator of the Introverted Network. Greg is on a mission to help introverts ditch the awkwardness and master authentic, effective networking. With a background in total rewards and HR strategy and a passion for building digital assets and audiences, Greg brings a fresh human approach to connection building without the dreaded small talk. It's my pleasure to have you on the podcast. Welcome to the show, Greg.
Thanks for having me on. Great to be here.
It's a pleasure, Greg. Tell me a little bit more about what inspired you to become a coach.
Really, it was my own experience, and my sort of origin story, I would say, goes back to the very first time I got laid off. So back in 2012, I was working for a company and I'd been there for 9 years. I started out as an independent contractor on a temporary gig, got brought on full time, grew over the 9 years into my career in total rewards and human resources. And one day in 2012, my boss, who was the head of HR, walked into my office and said, "I'm eliminating your position." And I had never planned on that happening. Nobody ever really does plan on that happening. And I never thought that would happen to me. I was doing well. I'd been promoted. My career was on track. And all of a sudden, I was looking at having to go find a job. And through those 9 years, I had never really grown my network. I thought to myself, hey, if I do a good job, and if I have a job, I'm not going to need to go find a job. I never looked. I never networked. So I found myself out of a job. I had no network, really no prospects. And I had to go figure it out for myself. Now, the problem is I'm pretty introverted. I don't like going to networking events. I don't do really well in large groups of new people that I don't know. I can get on a stage and give a keynote speech or do a workshop, but if I'm just in a group of people I don't know and I have to introduce myself and get to know people, I just freeze up. I don't know why. It's just something that happens to me. So the thought of networking to find a job was like, I would have rather gone to the dentist and have dental work than do that. But I had to figure out how to network a different way. And so through that process, I found a way that works for me and works, I think, for other introverts. And I found a new job, but I promised myself I would never be in that position again. So I kept growing my network, even though I didn't need to find a job. And I kept meeting new people. I kept helping other people in my network. And as I did that, a lot of people came to me and said, it seems like you've figured out something different in terms of networking, and it's really helped your career. It's brought you new career opportunities. Can you show me how to do that? And so I had people coming to me saying, will you show me how to network? Because it seems like you don't go to events, you don't pass out business cards, but yet you know everybody and they know you. And so I started to kind of do this in addition to my regular corporate job. And I was teaching people on the side and showing them how to do it because people either lost their jobs and needed to find a new job, or they didn't like their job and they wanted to do something else, but they were like me. They didn't want to go out to events and network with people in a big group. They wanted to meet people, have authentic conversations, build professional relationships, and then find opportunities that way. So that's really what started, and it's career coaching, but I would say I'm not the person who says, hey, let's really do an assessment and figure out what you want to do, or hey, let me look at your resume. There are plenty of people who I know, and I partner with those people a lot to do that piece of it. My focus is helping people grow their professional networks in a way that feels more authentic and doesn't require them to go to networking events or make cold calls or send out a bunch of spammy emails. So that's my focus in terms of helping people with their careers, which is how can you make those connections to take your career in the direction you want it to go.
And tell me a little bit more about the Introverted Networker also, and how does this work? Can you share more about that?
Yeah, so the Introverted Networker is my newsletter. It's the introvertednetworker.substack.com. That's where I write. I publish that every week. And what I really try to do there is kind of go deeper on topics about networking to teach people how to do it. That's really just a main place where people kind of come to my content who are really, into learning more. And I did that because my main place, I would say the main platform where people discover me is LinkedIn. So like a lot of career coaches, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm posting every weekday, usually around networking, usually around the way I approach networking, but you can only tell so much sort of in your LinkedIn post. And I started there just because, again, that's where people go to talk about their careers. That's the sort of the main social platform. It's more professional. And as I was talking there, I wanted to get people into sort of a longer format of content, and also really get people there who are really into learning more about it, right? Because I mean, lots of people scroll a lot of things on LinkedIn. I really want to talk to the people who are really focused on growing their network. So I try to move people from my LinkedIn content into the Introverted Networker newsletter. And then from there, I try to share more and give people the opportunity to work with me in either a one-on-one or a group coaching format. Now, I have done the one-on-one throughout my coaching career with people where I will meet with people one-on-one and I'll say, hey, we're going to work this many weeks together and we're going to focus on these steps and we're going to work on growing your network over that time. I've actually found that while that's okay, I enjoy the group coaching format better. So for me, group coaching is a lot more sustainable. I can interact with more people in the same amount of time and they still get the same amount of value because they're getting my guidance, my direction. They're getting feedback from me, but they're also getting feedback from the other people in the group. And so that's why I really like that group coaching format better because again, as a coach, it's more sustainable for me and I can help more people. But your question was about the newsletter. I take people from the newsletter and then that's the group of people that I would say, hey, if you're interested in going deeper and you want to work with me, let's get you into a group coaching format. Let's kick off that program and then you'll get a much deeper level of coaching and experience if you're working with me in that group coaching. But I would say the newsletter is sort of the place I want people to land so that then I can tell them more about it. And when they're ready, they can jump into the group coaching program.
Thank you for sharing that. And you said that you're working with typically mostly introverts. I'm also an introvert myself. I believe so. And is there a specific industry when someone's working with you, or when it comes to like your target audience, is it to a specific industry or is it not related to an industry? It's broader than that?
It's broader than that. I think whenever you're networking, it can be any industry. I think some industries are more difficult than others. Some industries are more closed off where people aren't willing to kind of talk about what they do and share what they do. But at the same time, I don't think it necessarily matters what industry you're in. But I will work with anybody. I will talk to, I've given presentations and done work with people in college. So they haven't even started their careers yet. early careers, how do you kind of grow that network when you're early? Later on in your career, what do you do if you're sort of getting to an age where you feel like it might be hard for you to find a job because of your age? Because people say, I don't want to hire somebody that old. So work with people there, because honestly, those people have a lot more of a network than they usually think. So it doesn't really matter sort of what stage of career or what industry you're in. It just matters, how do you want to approach it? And yes, a lot of people I work with are more introverted. This works for extroverts too. But typically extroverts, they lean into the events a little bit more. That's something they're more comfortable doing. They get energy from that. And the thing with introversion and extroversion is so much just about being shy or not wanting to talk, right? Again, I can talk to people all day long. I can talk on this podcast. I can talk to my clients on the phone. I have no issue with that. It's the where do you get energy from? And so for me, these conversations, they always take away energy, right? And so it takes me a little bit of time afterwards to kind of recover from that. For an extrovert, they tend to get energy from that. I have a wife that's extremely extroverted. I have a son who's extremely extroverted. They talk to people and they get jazzed. They get fired up. Me and my daughter, we've got to have a little bit more alone time. But I think it also, because you think I'm going to lose some energy, that's where those events that you go into seem to be something you kind of dread, because I'm like, oh man, if I go to this event, it's a couple hours, I'm going to be exhausted after I've gone into this room full of people. So that's where the people who, and sort of the introverted networker thing is a little bit of a paradox, right? Because you don't think of introverts as being networkers. So putting that sort of name out there kind of grabs people's attention as, oh, this is something different. This is something that maybe I haven't already seen. And now I'm interested in hearing more about what this guy who calls himself the introverted networker has to say.
And if people want to find that, the introverted networker.substack.com, right?
That's my newsletter. Pretty straightforward, but again, that's, and I post, every Saturday morning. What I do along with that is that's the main thing. I also have, in my newsletter, links to my YouTube channel, which is about, like a 15-minute video every week, kind of on that topic, goes a little deeper. And then also an audio podcast on Spotify and Apple iTunes that is the same content, but it's just in different places. So anybody can get to any of those from the newsletter. The links to those things are all in the newsletter.
Thank you for sharing that. I wanted to ask you, in terms of your coaching business right now, I was looking at your LinkedIn as well. The newsletter has been around for almost 3 years now, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Up on 3 years.
When it comes to your coaching business, has been earlier than that, or?
Yeah. So I actually started out just honestly, I would post something on LinkedIn like, hey, who's interested in doing coaching? Really straightforward, probably not the most systematic. But one of the things that I've kind of learned as I've been doing this is it's really easy when you're getting into coaching to get, I would say, almost seduced by tools and platforms. Meaning you find a new platform and you go, this is going to run my businesses and this is going to really help me out. And this is the key, right? If I just built my business on this platform, then I would get more clients. And I fall victim to that all the time. And what I have to remind myself is, I think it's like the Paul Graham quote of do things that don't scale when you're starting out, because you have to figure out what you're even going to be doing first. And so my first coaching cohort, my first, one-on-one clients, all just came from me sending emails to people, or people saying, hey, that's interesting. And I would send them an email. Or my first sort of 7-day challenge, that's an email-based challenge where it's like, hey, you're going to work on one thing each day for 7 days. That was just, hey, send me your email, and then I'll email you each day. And I'm literally like copying and pasting the email, into different people's emails, because I don't want to send too many people an email at one time because it gets blocked by the email providers and stuff. So it seemed like not really that, I don't know, systematic. But I found that that's how I figured out what did I even want to say and what content worked and what got people to say, yeah, I'll join this call that you're going to have, and whether you're using Zoom or some other platform, like just give me the link and I'm going to click on the link and I'll join. those were the best sort of coaching experiences or cohort groups at the very beginning. And so it got me to do it as opposed to spending like weeks setting up some platform that then I was going to have to wait for people to join. And I didn't even know if they were going to join and I didn't know how it was going to work. And I think sometimes coaches burn a lot of time trying to find the best video platform, the best place to host the video, the best outreach, the best CRM, all those things. I think if you're starting out, just do it as low tech as possible. And once you start doing that, you'll see what works. And then when you really know what works, then you can start to move into the technology and start scaling it and making it better. But if you think I'm going to join, some new product that you saw and all of a sudden people are going to come find you, that's not going to happen, right? You still have to do the work of locating clients. You have to still do the work of putting either out the content or finding the people and connecting with them and sharing what you have to offer. You still have to get the pitch right. You still have to get the language right. You still got to identify what their pain is. All that kind of stuff is really more important than what platform you use. So for me, I was doing this again, very much people I knew, people who were in my network, people who knew me, people who saw what I was doing were the people going, hey, I'd love to learn that. And I was like, okay, great. Here's the program. Here's what we're going to do. And then the really good thing about that is, as you do that, those sessions become sort of like your content for going forward, right? So what you talk about in those sessions becomes the topic that you talk about next week in the newsletter, or what you talk about in the next video, or what you talk about in the next post. So it sort of becomes your content creation and also your coaching at the same time. But I think you figure that stuff out as you go if you're not wasting all your time trying to come up with the perfect platform to be on.
Yeah, you just need to get it going. And when it comes to looking at the future, do you have any goals you're working towards in the next 1 to 3 years with your coaching business?
Yeah. So, like I said, when I started out doing this, I was doing this sort of as a side business. This was not my main job, right? So, you indicated kind of in the intro, I've got a company called Retention and Rewards Partners. I also have sort of the Introverted Networker coaching business on the side. And it ties together a bit in the theme and the idea of connection and professional connection. When I talk in the Introverted Networker, that's about individuals growing their networks for career opportunities. Retention and Rewards Partners is more focused on B2B clients and helping organizations improve their retention and engagement by building more professional connection within the organization. So same ideas, but different audiences. For the Introverted Networker piece, my goal is to grow the newsletter base, but also grow a community of people who are more consistently engaging in sort of that group coaching concept, so that I would ideally like to have my sort of community and paid subscribers and paid coaching clients cover my annual fixed expenses, right, as a business. So that would be kind of running on a consistent basis, have sort of the funnels going and the flywheels going and everything, so that I'm covering those fixed expenses. And then my B2B would be more, everything on top of that, right? So all the other additional income that I'd want to make would be coming from those B2B clients in sort of bigger engagements. So I'm not going to have as many clients in the B2B space. You have fewer clients, but there'd be higher ticket items that I'm going into their organizations, and I'm basically doing the group coaching or the one-on-one coaching for those clients within their organization for the specific outcomes of getting them to better employee engagement and retention. So as I think about the next 1 to 3 years, that's what I'm focusing on. And it's no longer my sort of side business. This is my business. So 6 months ago, it was back in September of 2024, I left my corporate job and launched this as my full-time career. And so I'm sort of in that place of moving from it just being a side business to this is my full-time career. This is what I do now. And so that's how I'm looking to scale it in the next 1 to 3 years.
Nice. Thanks for sharing it. And I really like how you structured both the newsletter and the B2B business on this, and how they like really connect together. That's a wonderful idea. When it comes to investments, have there been any coaching programs, masterminds, or communities that you found particularly useful in growing your coaching business or to get you started or maybe get you going? I know you mentioned in the beginning that it doesn't have to be fancy or shiny, but you need to get it started. Have there been any coach that has helped you through that?
Yeah, I've worked with a couple groups, and I wouldn't say they were specifically like how to get your career coaching going, but it was how to get your sort of business off the ground, right? And so the first one was, a few years ago, Justin Welsh, who posts on LinkedIn all the time. I think everybody knows Justin from LinkedIn. When he first started getting out there, when I first found him, it was probably, I don't know, 2020, 2021. I know he'd been doing it for a while before then. And he had his sort of LinkedIn operating system that was about how to create content on a consistent basis and engage with people to really start to grow your audience and following. So that was one that I did really early on just to get consistent, because I think the hard thing is the consistency. Like, how do you consistently engage and how do you consistently show up? And I think once you do that for a long enough period, it gets a lot easier. It kind of becomes part of your routine. So that was the early one, I would say. And then when I recently I worked with a group called Level Up Creators, which is Amanda Northcutt is another person from LinkedIn. She's helped numerous creators kind of take their business from like just that side business to really making it your full-time business or growing your business if you already have one. And so worked with her a lot to really get clear, and she was really critical in helping me reposition this to this B2B and seeing that, if you really want to grow, you're not going to be able, it's not going to be sustainable to just keep like trying to do another launch and another product and another group cohort and stuff like that. You've really got to think about the B2B and how do you turn your business into those high ticket clients that will pay you more for an engagement, and you're going to have a lower volume but higher ticket. So that's, worked with her and her team for like almost 6 months, probably 4 or 5 months on that, and really helped me reposition that and think about how to do that differently. So for me, like, look, I've taken like all the courses, that are out there. I've signed up for all the courses, all the groups. I didn't need another course. I really needed like almost like a team to say like, hey, we're going to help you launch your business. And that was, that was not cheap, right? I mean, that was a big investment. That was a lot of like, okay, I'm going all in. I'm going to make this my full-time career, my full-time business. I think at some point you have to ask yourself, are you ready to do that? And you may not be. You may do this on the side for a number of years. You have to sometimes figure out your niche and your voice and all those kind of things, and like who are the people you want to work with. I think once you do that and you kind of get going, then you have to say like, am I really ready to kind of invest in this? And investing in it is a commitment too, right? Investment's a commitment, and you have to commit and say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get this help I need. I'm really going to try to get advice and direction from people who have done this and what they're doing. And that's where I was sort of last summer before I left my job, is I was like, I'm going to finally do this. I've messed around. I don't want to say messed around. I worked on this for years and years and years, kind of trying new things, but never really investing and committing. And so that was the time when I said, I'm going to commit my time, my money, my effort, all my energy to doing this. And this is what it's going to be now. So look, I mean, not everybody can do that, right? And you have to figure out when is the time in your life when you're ready to do that. For me, it was, September of 2024, because I had spent a lot of time thinking about it, working on it, trying different things. I knew eventually I was going to do this. I put myself in the right position financially from my last corporate job to give myself some runway there. And so now I'm, up and running and feeling like, okay, this is the direction I want to go, and things are working out the way I want them to work out.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, because you were just mentioning that it's been almost 9 months now. So if you think about September 2024,
Yeah.
I was just going to ask you, but you already answered that you are already feeling that this is working out, this is going well, and you are in the right path to grow it throughout these 9 months, because I feel like these 9 months have a lot more context. Is there something that you wish you had known first when you started it? Is there like an unexpected lesson learned once you kind of incorporated your B2B in it as well?
Yeah, I think one of the key things is how critical partnerships are to growing your business. And what I mean is other people who are doing something similar in a related area, a related niche that you can work with, potentially partner with, because you might have the same sort of customers that may need slightly different things, but really more to give you somebody to talk to. Because I think it is very lonely being a solopreneur or entrepreneur who's starting your own thing. You don't really have an office you go into, you don't have coworkers, you don't have a boss. I mean, you don't have people you connect with all the time. I mean, maybe you have your clients and your customers, but you spend a lot of time on your own in your own head, and getting out and meeting people and partnering with people and seeing what other people are doing, and just kind of having somebody to commiserate with, to vent to a little bit. Because every time I do that, I talk to people and we're all struggling with the same things, people who are in the same position. And it's like, oh, I feel so much better that I know I'm not the only person that's showing up and struggling with these things daily. So you have to really build that network and community of people that know what you're going through. So, you hear people say that, but until you go through it, you don't actually understand it. And you really have to work to make those connections, because it's really easy to sit in front of your computer screen all day and think about, where am I going to get the next client? How am I going to do this? How am I going to, get prospects? How am I going to generate leads? All that kind of stuff. And I don't mean just like networking to find clients. I mean networking to find partners or people who, again, understand what you're going through and help be that support system to keep you going.
And I really think that you got this right when you said it, because like I can see you're open to even like putting time on to like getting to like a podcast like this one, and like eventually like grow your network. More people are going to learn about you, even this way. What is like the biggest challenge you've faced so far in scaling your coaching business?
I think one of the hard things, I think, in any type of business like this is, how do you sort of make it repeatable and sustainable and stay on track so that you don't have sort of the ups and downs in the revenue. I think that happens a lot, especially when you're starting out. And it's happened to me. Like, look, as I gone full time, I had several clients like right out of the gate. And so I focused all on the clients, because that's where the money's coming from and that's where I should focus. I think the hard thing is, how do you continue to build your pipeline of prospects and future clients while you're serving the clients you have, right? So you got to serve the clients you have because they're going to send you a check. But eventually you're going to need new clients. So how do you do those two things at the same time so that you've got prospects that you can have when, client number one says, okay, engagement's over. Thank you very much. That was great. You got to be ready to go with the next one. So I think keeping that sort of sustainable pipeline of clients is tough. And even if you're doing a group coaching cohort, right, maybe you do it for, 4 to 6 weeks or however long you do it for your coaching. If you do it for longer, great. But you're going to be done with that one. And it's like, do you have the other one ready to go? Right? How did you build up the other one so it's ready as soon as you finish that one, so that you've got people always kind of coming into it? How do you keep those revenue streams going without any sort of ups and downs and dips? And when you switch from that corporate job, that steady paycheck that's coming in every 2 weeks or twice a month, when you switch from that to this, you have to really be ready to sustain yourself through those sort of ups and downs, because you tend to take that for granted until it's not there anymore, and then you're like, oh, I didn't get paid this Friday. Oh man, like, what am I going to do now? You gotta make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah, and right now, would you say that is more of a lead generation issue, or more of like a sales issue, like getting enough people to join, but like you get a lot of leads, or it's just like not a lot of people are joining the program? And you mentioned you also have to deliver great results to the ones that you already have while also growing them. Do you feel like it's more of a lead generation issue or more of a sales conversion issue?
It just kind of depends on your target audience and what it is they need and what they're doing. I think for me in my business, the problem I have with, I think, leads in networking is it's who are the leads. And what I mean by that is, somebody who just lost their job is very motivated to jump in and do this work. And the challenge is they want a result yesterday. they want to find a new job as soon as possible. For what I'm doing, teaching people how to network, we can go through it. We can certainly work through the program. It's going to take time. Anytime you're trying to develop relationships and things like that, it's going to take a little time, because my approach is not like, I'm going to teach you how to write the perfect cold email so you get an interview. Like that's not what I teach. I teach, here's how you're going to connect with people so that you develop real professional relationships that are going to lead you to a new job or a new opportunity. But that takes a little bit of time. And so those people are like, great, let's get results now. And I'm like, I just want you to manage your expectations, because I don't want to take your money if you're thinking you're going to get an offer next week. It's going to take a little bit of time. And they're like, okay, well, I need it instantly. Okay. So those are probably not my perfect leads. But then the challenge is the people who are like, I don't really love my job. I'm thinking about making a switch probably in the next, 3 to 6 months. Need to grow my network now. And at the same time, they're like, but I'm not in an urgent situation. So I'm not like dying to get it. I know I need to network, but I'll do it later. Right. I run into that a lot too. So it's like, not do you have enough leads? It's like, do you have the right leads of the right people who are saying, I really am committed to growing my network now because I'm thinking far enough in the future to where this is going to be valuable to me. And that's often, a lot of times people are like distracted by other things and say like, I'm not really, I know I need to do it, but I'll get to it next week. Right. So it's sort of that developing that urgency for those people to say like, hey, look, don't wait any longer, because 3 to 6 months is going to go by before you know it. And then it's going to be too late and you're going to be stuck and you're going to want instant results. So, I think the challenge is always like, who is the right lead, and really figuring out who is that right person, who is exactly in the place they need to be. And then if you get them, if you figure out who that is, I think the sales process is a little bit easier. But it's really like, who is that target, and getting really, really focused on finding that person and figuring out how to help them find you and know about you, so that, when they're ready, they go, okay, let's do it. Let's jump into this. So I'm sure it's the same with everybody, every type of coach. You have a certain way you do it, a certain problem you solve, and not everybody's at that place where they solve that problem, need that problem solved today, but you just need them to know that you're out there, so that when it does pop up, you're the first name that comes into their head.
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I would say getting the qualified leads is the bigger issue, and then sales becomes, just like you mentioned, easier. And it doesn't even become sales. Right. It's just like, you're the person they need at that point.
Right, because look, I mean, to this point, sorry, I jumped back in here, but to the point of the person who just lost their job, they're all about, they'll be like, yeah, let's do it today. Here's my money, let's go. But then we're going to get into it and they're going to start being like, wait a second, like this is taking too long. I can't wait this long. I got to find a job. And they're not going to be happy customers, right? So do I want to take their money and have them be unhappy and unsatisfied with the results? No. I mean, if they're like, I got to have a resume, I got to figure out a posting strategy, I got to like start cold emailing people. I'm like, I know other people I could introduce you to that would probably be better suited for you. I don't want to like be working with people and have them be like, that was a terrible waste of money and time. I could sell people on, hey, look, we're going to network, we're going to find you a job. I'm not going to feel good about the fact of, hey, that didn't work out and they're still looking. And so they feel like they didn't get the value for their money. That to me, I'm not going to trade the money for that sort of outcome for people, or the lack of outcome for people. I'd rather people get the outcome, and it be a little harder for me to find the right people to get the right outcome than just to sell it to everybody and make some money and then feel badly about the way I made it.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, getting the wrong client is totally a lose-lose situation. Mm-hmm. Lose for them, for you.
Yeah.
And setting up that expectation right up front could be a very good strategy for that. And like letting them know that this is what they're going to expect. Is not going to be like tomorrow. It's never tomorrow. I don't think anyone should have that expectation, but yeah.
Look, I've been there. I talked about the first time I got laid off. I got laid off twice. The second time I got laid off, though, I already had my network. I was ready to go. The first time it took me 3 months to find a job. The second time it took me 3 weeks. And so I turned months into weeks through having a good network in place. And I wasn't really worried about it the second time. But I'll tell you, the first time it was like, what am I going to do? I mean, I had two kids that were a lot younger at the time, and thinking about, is my career over? What am I going to do? How am I going to find another job? When you're in that situation, you're panicking, right? You're like, how long is the money going to last? And what am I going to do? And how am I going to find it? You are panicking. And I really don't want to take advantage of somebody in that situation, because I've been there myself, right? And if you come along and say like, look, I'll get you results in a couple of weeks, they're going to jump on that. And then you're just kind of taking advantage of that sort of panic. So I don't really want to be that person that does that. If there's somebody else out there that does it, hey man, more power to you. If that's how you sleep at night, that's fine. So I really focus on like working with the right people who are going to get the right result and be really happy with the work that they did with me.
Thank you, Greg. Is there any final advice you'd like to share with other career coaches who are going to be watching this podcast?
What I would just say is really get your message or your brand or whatever it is you want to help people with, like start sharing it with everybody you know. Get it out there and see what people say. And the thing that I'm really focused on now, and I think is good advice, is the metric you should be trying to shoot for is more no's, as in NOs. Like get more no's, because the more no's you get from people, the more yeses you're going to get along the way. It's so easy to sit there and like craft your offer and craft your curriculum and your content and everything. But until you have somebody go like, no, that's not for me, you're not going to know which direction to go with it. So I think too often we're like, oh, I'm afraid to send this out because somebody might reject it. Like you should be looking for as many no's as you can possibly get in a day or a week, because that's ultimately going to get you to more yes.
Thank you, Greg. It was a pleasure having you on the podcast.
Thanks. Great to be here.
That's it for this episode of Career Coaching Secrets. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can subscribe to YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this episode to catch future episodes. This conversation was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to 7 and 8 figures without burning out. To learn more about Purple Circle, our community, and how we can help you grow your business, visit joinpurplecircle.com.